Let me call her.
Oh. We got her?
Yeah.
Doc,
Hi, great.
you there?
Her phone is muted, but
Okay, good. But she's there.
Yeah, I see her here.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Great. So it's
She's muted, but I see her.
7:07, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. Julie, would you do roll call, please?
Barbara Dayton,
Here.
Tim Frazier,
here.
Dave Conlon,
Here.
Amy Rivera, muted, but I see her here, and Pat Brabant.
Here.
Okay, we have all board members present.
Great. Thank you. If we could all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, wait, now I got to get into board docs and, okay, sorry. And actually, we're going to do a brief moment of silence for those who are been suffering from COVID-19. If we could all take a minute, please, to do that. Thank you very much, everyone. This is definitely a tough time that we're going through, but fortunately, we are able to meet here in this format, and I'm feeling very grateful for that. Our first items of business will be to the approval of minutes. So please be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the minutes from the March 9th, March 16th, and March 30th meetings. Do I have a motion?
motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Did everyone vote? I can't really tell. Next item on the agenda is the capital project update. And we have Derek Natz from Park East here to give us a little update. Yes?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having me this evening. Tonight, I'm going to speak about the Springs Phase 2 project, the pre-award process, which we kind of have gone through. We're just going to recap it. And then I will follow up with—
I'm sorry. Hold on a minute, Derek. Could people mute so we could? I think we're getting some feedback from Derek's. Thanks.
Okay. So thank you for having me this evening. Tonight, I'm going to speak about the Springs Phase 2 project status and update. I'm going to start with the pre-award process, which we're most of the way through, but I'm just going to recap it and bring us all current. And then I'm going to finish with the post-award process, and that kind of tells us where we are after the board sent the approvals and where we are currently with the new contractors for the Phase 2 portion of the project. I believe I sent a handout. I'm not sure if the board is privy to that, but whether you are or not, I'm going to go through it and I could share it with everyone afterwards. So pre-award process, bids were received on March 6th. BBS and Park East reviewed the bids against the budget. BBS and Park East confirmed the bids received exceeded the available budget. So BBS and Park East met with the district to review the bids, looking at the add alternates and deduct alternates. Based on the budget constraints, BBS and PEC were tasked excuse me, were tasked with requesting voluntary credits from each of the prime contractors. So BBS and PEC scheduled pre-qualification meetings with the low prime contractors. The meetings were held on March 13th and Monday, March 16th. BBS and Park East confirmed all low bidder contractors had accounted for all the project scopes with their respective bids. So we went through the documents, reviewing them with the individual contractors, making sure that they had everything that was in the documents, and they all agreed that they had all the scopes accounted for. So then BBS and Park East confirmed with all the low bidders they're comfortable with their respective bid amounts. So we made sure after going through the scopes that they were okay with their physical bid amounts. Again, they all confirmed that they were. BBS and PEC confirmed that all the low bid prime contractors had accounted for the work identified in the special provisions and CIPs. We also confirmed that each contractor had accounted for the appropriate allowances within their base bid. So special provisions is just another document within the documents that outlines some additional work that the contractors have to do. The CIP plans, those were shared with the board on previous occasions, that outline some fencing and egress and stuff of that nature, staging, bathrooms. And again, all the contractors confirmed that they had that. The allowances are just money set aside within their base bids that each contractor has to account for within their base bid. If it is not used, that money goes back to the district. And again, all the contractors confirmed that they had that value included in their bids. BBS and PEC confirmed with each low bidder they have reviewed and can meet the project insurance requirements. So we made a big point to go through that aspect of the job. And again, all the contractors have agreed that they can and will meet the insurance requirements. BBS and Park East reviewed with each contractor the project schedule and confirmed that they can meet the dates outlined in the special provisions. Again, the special provisions, amongst other things, speaks about project schedule. So they all agreed that they can meet it, although with the COVID-19, they had some concerns with no one really knowing how this is going to affect construction. They said if there was minimal impact from this, that they can meet the project schedule. The fortunate thing with this project is that it was awarded at the end of March. The contractors were given their POs in early April, and physical construction is not slated to start until June 29th. So if we could get through this and we could have these contractors start on June 29th, in my opinion, they should not have lost really any time. So we'll keep tracking that as we move through the weeks leading up to June 29th. Lastly, during the pre-qualification meetings, we advised each prime contractor that the phase 2 project is over budget and asked if each prime, if they could provide the district with a voluntary discount to help meet the budget. That's really our only means of negotiating with contractors at this phase of the project. We can't change scope. It's just not allowed legally. So the only way that we could have a reduction in costs is if the contractors agree to voluntarily give back money. So each of the contractors looked at their respective bids. GC1, Stalco, EC1, JVR, who's the electrician, MC1, Pyramid, who's the mechanical contractor, and PC1, Hirsch, all agreed to give money back to the district for a total voluntary discount of $114,000, which helps with the bottom line in respect to the bond budget. The only other contractor was Landtech. They were substantially lower than the number 2 and number 3 contractor. So I think we were happy from our standpoint that they were willing to take the job with how low they were in respect to the other contractors. And due to that, they were not able to give a voluntary deduction back. So BBS and PEC provided letters of recommendation for the 5 prime contractors. and the Springs Board of Education approved the Phase 2 contractors on March 30th. So that brings us up to date. I don't know, maybe if there's questions before I get into the post-award process. Okay, so post-award, this is after the Board of Education provide their approval of the 5 prime contractors. The district's business office requested the prime contractors supply their W-9s. We reached out to each of the prime contractors. We got the W-9s. We supplied those to the business office. Once in receipt of those, the business office started to issue POs on April 7th. All the POs were established, sent out to each of the contractors. Once the prime contractors were issued the POs, PEC reached out to each of the contractors and asked them to start submitting their bonds, their insurance, and submittals. PEC is conducting an internal review of the bonds and insurance, which is typically what we do. The final review, after we think it's close to 100%, they'll be sent to Ingerman & Smith, your attorney. That's where the bonds go. And NYSER will do the final review of their insurances. BBS will start to review the approved submittals as they are uploaded. A few of the contractors have started uploading submittals, and pretty much the submittals are all the product data information that's going to build the Phase 2 of this project. BBS will review in conjunction with their engineers, and once they get approved, then the contractors can start purchasing the material and delivering it to the site. Park East has scheduled a project kickoff. It's currently established for this coming Monday, April 27th. And as I stated earlier, we're hoping to get all the paperwork in order, get their bonds, insurance all approved, get all their submittals, get them purchasing material, and targeting a hard construction where shovels are in the ground for June 29th. Any questions?
Is these contractors getting bonds and insurance, is that going to be difficult in this current environment?
So far, the majority, I think there's only one contractor that is lagging behind all of them. We have been in receipt of 4 of the 5 contractors' bonds and insurance. So that's a lot of paperwork, a lot of limited in-person contact. So on other projects, we have not experienced delays associated with that. And the submittals also follow the same kind of process where it's a very limited person-to-person contact, and we've been seeing success in the current climate with bonds, insurance, and submittals. Other questions?
No, it's just, I mean, it's just very exciting that we're at this point. I feel like I say that every time, every month, but it's still exciting. It's still, you know, it's unbelievable that we're at this point after all the time that went into the development. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. And I'm very optimistic. I think the way Springs shook out amongst what's happening now, I believe we're in a positive position. And I truly think that we'll be able to achieve the end dates unless something changes with the current trajectory of what's happening currently. Other questions?
I guess no other questions at this time. So you're having your kickoff meeting, I'm assuming a remote meeting next Monday, and then.
Yes. So we've been doing everything remote, very similar to what we're doing tonight. We use GoToMeeting. It's been successful so far. We have probably done close to 100 from the middle of March till now. Contractors are buying into it, and we don't really seem to be losing too much changing the system to this method.
Derek, make sure that Pat and Dave are invited. If they can make it, they'll be sitting in as they did on phase 1.
Sure, I will definitely include them on the invite.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anything else for Derek at this point? Okay.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you so much for being here again, and I guess we'll be seeing you next month.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, healthy.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
Derek, have a good night.
Take care, Derek. Thanks.
Sorry, switching back and forth between screens here. So at this point, it is time for public commentary number 1, which are on our items on the agenda of board business items, which include personnel, finance, and policy. So Julie, did you receive any questions from anybody about anything?
No, I don't have anything right now. Right before public commentary, we do have recognition of personnel, students, programs, and donations.
Oh,
And
yep.
Mike has the capital project update, correct, Mike?
We have a couple of things before public commentary, but I do not have anything at this time.
Okay, well, good. So, all right. So yes, I skipped over too quickly. The remainder, there was a capital project PowerPoint on there, which I see after I got into it was not Derek's. So we can go over that. And then we do have an exciting recognition to put forth too.
Right. Is John Gibbons, is you able to put that up, that PowerPoint?
Yes. Just let me know when.
I guess we can do it now.
Which one?
The capital project one. Capital project update.
There you go, Mike.
Right, I think you're going to have to page it, right, John?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, first page, just a little summary, just, with the recent award of the Phase 2 contracts, the proposed work schedules and cash flows are enacted. On-site work is scheduled to begin June 29th. Next slide. This is the projected estimated timeline and the cost associated with it that Derek Natz has provided to me. Roughly in the second quarter here, between now and June 30th, he's expecting roughly we're going to incur 5% of the work and the cost. From July to September, it'll be 10% of the project. Fourth quarter, it's going to go to 20%. We'll incur in that quarter, 25% in the first quarter of January, February, March, 20% in the second quarter of April, May, and June, 10% in July, August, and September, third quarter of 2021, and the final push would be the fourth quarter of 2021 with the final 10%. That's how he lays out how the contract is we're going to incur those expenses. When I look at the bonding, I'm looking at it not quite in terms of this because I know that there's already probably a good 45 to 60 day delay behind when we incur the expense and when we're going to pay the money. Next slide. It's not working.
Okay, hold on 1 second, please.
Yeah. All right. The project bonding options, which we've talked about earlier, we just follow as planned, going out to full bond August 2020. We again, as we know from this morning earlier, that interest rates on bonds, we're not quite sure how this pandemic is going to affect everything. but we're hopeful. It sounds like from our fiscal agent that rates are going to pretty much remain stagnant and plateau out. We'll have a better picture of that probably the end of next week when they have several bonds going out to bid at the end of next week. We'll have a better idea what those rates are coming in at. Another possible option is to push the bonds out to January 2021. From a cash flow standpoint, it's going to be extremely, extremely tight. I'm going to really have to play a lot of delay games in order to hold the money as long as I can in order to get through till we get to the bonding. And then the other option, which is option 3 that I call it, is to issue a short-term ban for 1 year. We can issue that ban August 2020. And a year from then, in August 2021, go out to the full bond. And that helps just delay everything for us and gives us a chance to have a little bit of a breathing room to settle in and see what's going to happen with the markets, with the economy, and everything else. And hopefully we would be able to get better rates, but there's no crystal ball here. There's no guarantees. It's one of those risks that we have to face. All right, this is a little bit more detail on option number 1. We issue the bond August 2020. First interest only payment would be spring in 2021 through June of 2022, somewhere in that time frame. And again, when we go out to the bond, we can negotiate with we could put it into the bond bid how we want the payments to lay out going out. And then with the principal and interest, the first full principal and interest payment would begin in the 2022 to 2023 school year. So we're pushing that full principal and interest payment out 2-3 years. And by going to option number 1, it would look the debt service, total debt service, all of our plans that are in place. If we continue along those lines, it would lay out something like that, as you see it on the screen here. Down at the bottom, the tax rate to cover the debt. This would be the equivalent value on a home with a fair market value of $589,656. We're talking about the first year, costing the taxpayers $88.45 for that. If you go to the next fair market value at $786,207, you're looking at $117.93. And a home valued at $982,759 would be $147.42 in tax for the year. And each year you go out, you'll see those equivalent rates going out till we get to 22, 23, where you see it jump up from the $128 to $193. And from that point on, it's going to be between $193, $197 in tax levy for the year for that bond issue under option number 1. Now we go to option number 2. The bond would be issued, say, in January of 2021. First interest only payment would be 18 months after issue, which should push it to about July 2022, which is now in the 22-23 fiscal year. And the principal and interest payments would begin in January of 2023. So the schedule that would lay out for the option number 2 looks like what's on the screen. And you can see there's no new project debt in the 2021 fiscal year. So what'll happen is in option number 2, we're actually going to save $296,000 by not having any debt payment on the new project. But we're going to pick it up in the following year. Is there somebody asking a question here? Okay. And again, at the bottom of the screen is also how the tax rates would be impacted under this plan. You'll notice there's a line here for total savings. I'm comparing the results of option number 2 versus where we are on option number 1. And except for the swing between 20 and 21 and 21, 22, where it just flip-flops, there's no savings in this scenario. Option number 3 next. Like I said, we're going to do a bond anticipation note issued in August of 2020. First, the interest would be due through August 2021. We'll issue the bond in August of 2021. The first payment of interest only would be February 2023. Principal and interest would begin 23-24 school year. And when we issue that bond, we'd go for the full amount so that we have the first portion of the bond would pay back the principal on the ban, leaving us the remainder to pay the rest of the contract out. If we go to the next screen, option number 3, the schedule lays out as you see it there, where we're going to pick up $225,000 in interest estimated, and the bond interest only in the 22-23 school year would amount to $890,000 and change. And then you've got principal and interest hitting in full in the 23-24 and 24-25 school years. Again, the tax rates to cover the debt are listed below. And what will happen here is you'll notice the orange colored area for option 3 savings comparing option 3 totals to option 1. We're going to save $296,000 in debt service in the first year, $368,000 in the second year, $292,000 in the third year, and then in the fourth and the fifth year, it's relatively flat. But the overall savings in this scenario means our debt service payments are going to be $964,000 less in those 5 years under option 3 than they are under option 1. And that's a brief summary of where we're at with the bonding and the capital project. Any questions on that?
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
can you explain the actual savings, the $935,000, how you arrived at that, and when does that come into play? I don't really understand how that works.
What it does is it's comparing how the principal and interest payments for all of our debt service laid out in option 1, comparing the same scenario in option number 3.
Right.
So the difference between the two options, we're going to save the debt service payments required are going to be lower in option number 3, each of those first three years. And then it gets pretty close to what we're going to pay under all of the other scenarios in years 4 and 5. So what we're doing is we're pushing the burden on taxpayers for debt service payments. We're pushing that burden out about 3 years before it starts really kicking in and affecting tax rates. And at that point, your increases aren't going to be large. It's going to level off. It's going to be no increase year to year to year.
And we locked in the interest rate at the point of the 3 years from now, Mike.
No, we're locking the interest rate at the time we go out to bond. So what'll happen is when we're ready to pull the trigger and say, we want to bond this and we want to do a bond, we have to go out. We put an official statement together with the help of Munistat. They go out, we get bidders to bid on the bonds, and we'll select which option from the various bidders would be the most advantageous to the district. And that's the point that the rates are going to be known and the rates are going to be locked in. Same thing on the bond anticipation note. We're not going to know what the exact rate is until we actually put it out to bid. And I think you missed it earlier, Pat, but as Mike Lagercio from Munistat had said, to issue a ban is probably about a 30-day turnaround from the time you say we want to issue the ban to the time we close and accept the award and close on the project on that ban. Whereas a bond, it's more like 6 weeks. So we'll have a little lead time we have to do there. But again, the ban gives us the option. We get the ban for a year. We're going to be halfway through the project. At that point in time, we're going to know better whether or not we're going to need the full amount of the bond or something a little bit lower. And we'll just, at that point, we can decide we're just going to bond what we need to finish the project, and we're done. Again, there's a risk, because if you do the ban now and in a year later you want to do the bond, we don't know what the interest rates are going to be, which is why what he put together for me was roughly a 3.5% interest rate factor, just to be on the high side. And so we could see and how it kind of flows out over 5 years. But if we can lock in something lower, that's what we're going to do. If we find out after next week or in the next month or so, that bond rates are down around 1%, 1.25%, it'd be foolish to go out with a ban. We might as well just go straight to bond. But again, that's going to be a decision I'll present to the board so that you guys can help and make that decision whether we should go for that or not. A lot of unknowns still within all of this too. A lot of uncertainty.
Right. They just want to read it again, right?
Yeah, I'm
The
looking for
bond
every
rate
way.
is different than.
Say that again?
Gotcha. The interest rates, they're still moving right now. That makes the bond rates, correct?
Correct.
And interest rates right now are moving in all different directions right now.
That's right.
Who knows in 3 months?
Yeah, and as Mike had explained,
We got to pay back $5 billion.
right. Last month, right in the beginning of this coronavirus pandemic, Mike was giving me examples of a couple of municipalities that they had closed on. The bond amounts were roughly the same. The terms were roughly the same. The first one was done 10 days ahead of the other one. And the first one, they got 5 different bidders on it, and it came in with I think he said a 0.79 interest rate on the bonds. 10 days later,
Right.
a different municipality, like I said, same scenario, the interest rates were over 2%. So that was the volatility then. But what he's telling me now is that rates seem to be settling in a little bit, and they're pretty steady at around the 2 to 2.25% range. So we're going to see. I think he said he's got 5 bonds closing at the end of next week. So that'll give us a pretty good gauge of where the market is now that the pandemic is on the downslope side.
Well, it sounds good that you have these two options worked out, and that we can be flexible with them as situations change. And
Right.
it seems like you're positioning us very well. So thank you.
Trying.
Oh, that's a good job.
All right. So I see. So we're at the end of the presentation there. Does anybody have any other questions for Mike? No?
Well, maybe Mike could just explain like the origins of the ban and how we kind of got to the point where we are considering this. I mean, the board, Mike, yourself, Deb, I feel like we all kind of, after the last month, we kind of wanted to look at all of our options, right, Mike?
Absolutely. And I think that there's a big fear out there because unemployment rates are going through the roof right now. We don't know what's going on. And I'm banking on the fact that this pandemic is going to end, fairly soon, and we're going to get life back to normal. And I think hopefully the economy will just bounce back so that things steady out, level off. And if I can delay a lot of this stuff down the road a little bit and try to buy us some time, that's what I'm trying to do. I really feel rather strongly that if we try to put a stop or a delay to the construction project as a whole, that it's going to ultimately cost us a whole lot more at the end. And I think that we're, in that case, taking a short-term solution to put a stop to the project rather than move forward with it, it's a short-term solution, but it's going to create a bigger long-term problem than we have. And I think the way we're trying to go about with the funding side of it and delaying that piece, I think that that's a more manageable way of doing it, and we can kind of ease it out because, I can't see us being in a depressed economy for 2 or 3 years. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, being able to space out the funding like this seems really smart. And plus also keeping on top of the bond rates and, being able to take advantage of, maybe unusually low rates too would really help us out in the long run. It would actually be interesting to see what, if you're making your current assumptions at like a 3.25 rate, what if we did have a 2 or 1.5, and how would that financially be different from having the ban, and, which would actually be saving us the most money? I mean, that is certainly something.
Yeah, I mean, I did run a rough, just for curiosity's sake, instead of a 3.5 doing a 2.5% rate, it's about $110,000 per month savings on principal and interest payments, mostly interest because of interest. So it could be sizable. A 1% decrease in rate could be very sizable.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
It
dramatic.
is.
Good. Well, keep our fingers crossed.
And Mike also is not looking at the capital project in isolation, even though it's out of your regular tax cap. We're considering it to our taxpayers with whatever we do in our regular budget every year. So that he'll present later on how we're trying to balance it out for the taxpayers, because we really do understand.
Right. Okay. Great. So thank you very much, Mike.
Okay.
Deb, do you want to talk about the donation that we had?
Yes, I would like to do that. We're very fortunate. I did speak to the donor for OLA. So the money came through OLA, but the gentleman's name is Michael Donovan. He not only gave Chromebooks, 150 to Springs, he gave Chromebooks to Riverhead, Manitowoc, Bridgehampton, Southold. In total, I think there were over 2,000 Chromebooks that were donated. Our donation, you'll see under finance, was 150 Chromebooks at about $300 each, about a $45,000 donation. And they are beautiful. They are touchscreen. And our students, many of them picked them up. Some of them sent us photos. I think I shared some of them with you. This is a real boost, not only for this period of time, but these children will keep these Chromebooks. I told Mike Donovan this, through 8th grade. So it's now nice that they have these, and it's 2nd and 3rd graders that receive the new Chromebooks. So those are theirs to keep through 8th grade.
Okay, great.
Deb, just a question about that. Is there insurance supplied with those Chromebooks, or is that up to the families?
No, they are our property. So when I say they get to keep them through 8th grade, you have a Chromebook initiative, 4th through 8th. So
Right.
that's what I mean by that. So now your one-to-one devices are 2nd through 8th grade. So they're our property. We will maintain them. We supply the licenses. We'll be able to fix them.
Okay, so if they're damaged, screen is broken or whatever, then we have the insurance to cover that.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
And not on the parents, but we do charge the parents if they're broken because of a student, throwing it on the floor purposefully. Yes, the parent would have to pay for it. If they lose the charger, the parents have to pay for the new charger. But if it's something that, the machine itself breaks for whatever reason, our group can service them.
Yeah, wear and tear and typical malfunctioning are covered, Tim.
Hey, Eric,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, question.
While on the subject of Chromebooks, is there a way, a question, well, I want a Chromebook, I just want a question to you. Is there a way that we could purchase some sort of insurance agreement so that if screens do get broken, it doesn't cost the parent or the district any additional money? Because I think it's like $150 to replace the screen, right?
Maybe John knows more about it, but there are certain things that are covered underneath the insurance.
Yeah, but I don't, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what's covered underneath the insurance, but I have to say, our IT crew is pretty good at fixing these machines.
They can replace screens, that's good.
Okay, they're pretty good at it. We had a couple returns since we went out on e-learning, and they're already back to the students being repaired.
Okay. Good.
Okay. While we're still in the recognition area here, I just want to do a little impromptu shout out to you guys there, to our administrators and our staff and our teachers, who you guys are doing a phenomenal job dealing with a very tough situation. And, we really appreciate that. And I've seen some of the things that you've shared with us that some of our teachers are doing. And it's very inspiring, and I know that they're going to help our kids pull through this tough time, as are you, all this extra time and work that everyone's doing. So thank you all very much for making the best out of a very difficult situation.
Thank you, Barbara.
Julie, I'm guessing that you haven't received anything else for public commentary at this point, since it's time for that?
We have one more celebration, Barbara.
What's that?
Lillian Flores is retiring, and we want to shout out to her. And Eric, feel free to chime in here. Lillian has been not only a teacher assistant, but an interpreter and an advocate for our E&L population. She will be sorely missed. We wish her well in retirement. This wasn't an easy decision for her. She loves Springs. She loves our kids. She has just always been there, going over and beyond, and always worried that our kids come first in her books. Whatever they need, she's always been there for them. So we want to wish her well in retirement. We will do a proper send-off when we're all together at some point. But Eric, if there's anything you want to add, you've known Lillian longer than I have.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Montero for the last 15 years, and I can tell you, as an advocate for children, she is stellar. Nobody compares to the type of advocacy that she provides for her kids. She's a model of professionalism. She's a hard worker. She has worked in every program ranging from primary grades to E&L to middle school to special education, and she's done a phenomenal job with each of the kids that she's been in contact with over the many, many years that she's at Springs. She's definitely going to be truly missed. She happens to share a room with me that's kind of cut in half with my office and her classroom, so we talk about these things all the time. So I'm going to miss Lillian tremendously when she retires.
Oh, thank you. She's really wonderful. I mean, she was the assistant when my oldest was in kindergarten there in their classroom. She's a lovely person, will definitely be sorely missed. But we certainly wish her well in what she's moving on to.
Now public commentary.
Okay, now public commentary.
I just checked, and there is no public commentary at this time.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm.
So that case, Carrie, do you want to go through the personnel items?
Sure. And just to piggyback before I put personnel item A up, I agree. Ms. Montero is just an amazing person, and she's helped us as well in special education and translating for parents, and always steps up to the plate and helps wherever is needed. She also has helped with Family Service League at night and trying to make that connection with parents. So we will miss her tremendously. So with personnel, A is the retirement of Lillian Montero. B is the resignation of Alex de Havilland. C is the abolishment of an elementary teaching position. D is the abolishment of a teaching two teaching assist. Nope, hold on, sorry. I don't have my whole thing open. Of 3 teaching assistant positions. E is the extended leave for Victoria Hoffman. She was back today in contact with her students, so welcome back, Victoria. F is the amended leave for Amy Mitchell. She had her baby early, so congratulations, Amy, and we hope you're doing well. And she will be taking the year. And Miss Vatke, who was Ms. Hoffman's leave, is now stepping into Miss Mitchell's leave to the end of the year, and she's been doing an amazing job. So very happy to have everyone back and all the babies, and good news all around.
Great. Thank you very much, Carrie. Does anybody have any questions on the personnel items at this time? In that case, do I have a motion to move personnel items A through G to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay. Finance section, Mike? We have some finance information for starters.
Right there?
Mike?
What happened to Mike?
There we go. I keep forgetting to turn the mic back on.
Okay.
The first 2 items, A and B, are the typical monthly appropriation status report and the revenue status report that you all would have received in your board packets. Item C is the tax levy and the budget presentation. Can I do this? Let's try it if I can make it work.
Does John have to put that up for you or no?
I don't know. He's got a copy of it. I thought I'd try it. I don't know how to make it work. I'm gonna need John's help.
Okay.
Should we actually be doing that now, or should we be doing that at the end of the meeting when we're in a budget workshop meeting?
We can hold off on that if you'd like. We can hold it off.
Do it separately on the budget meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's how we usually do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So going to item 8, which is finance, the warrants. You've got the warrants from the internal, well, the warrants, I've got the major expenditures. Do you want me to read those all out?
You know, maybe not, since we're doing a budget meeting as well, and we're going to be going on longer than usual.
Okay. And you would have received the major expenditure report as well. You've got the claims audit report for March 2020. You've got the resolution to accept the Chromebook donation from OLA, and you've got the resolution for the instructional contract with East Hampton Union Free School District from the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2025.
Great, thanks. It's nice that we've gotten that resolved and are ready to approve it. Does anybody have any questions on the finance items at this time?
Do we need a separate vote for the tuition contract, Julie?
No, we don't at this time. No.
Okay.
That does have to go out with our vote, though, at the end of the year?
Yes, it will. This is just the board approving what's going to be sent to the voters.
So that resolution has to be read?
Not necessarily. If it's a consent agenda for finance, that's fine.
Okay. Thank
So,
you.
do I have a motion to move finance items A through D to consent agenda?
I'll have a motion for that, and I want to thank you, Barbara, for skipping over the warrants tonight.
Thank you, Barbara.
Nothing personal, Mike.
Okay.
Are we voting on the, because you included in that the budget 5-year just now. So are we not voting on that yet?
That is, no, we are voting on that because that is one of the finance items, and then it's getting a public vote at a later date. We are approving
Well, right now,
approving
Your first resolution to go to the voters.
right. So we had a motion from Tim. Is there a second motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Special education? Carrie?
So good news is that we are continuing with annual meetings and any initials that we finished evaluations on prior to going out. So this is actually a catch up on some of the meetings that we had to cancel, and we are back on schedule. So which is great news, and the team is doing very well. I told Barbara before the meeting that our attendance actually for parents is increased with the internet web using Google Hangouts. So that's good news. So this might be a change that we do for the future.
Yeah, I like that idea. I really do. That may be something we learn in the process of helping that process, because it always does have problems running into attendance sometimes.
Right. Yeah. So we've only, I think you're approving 20 cases, and I had 2 parents not attend. One told us they were sick, and then the other one couldn't make it. So that is a much better turnout than previously.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
So be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendations from the Committee on Special Education and the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE cases 1 through 5 and CSE cases 1 through 15. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Second, you can be, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks. Policy, first read, we have the code of conduct on there, which is a very long policy. And it has been gone over, I guess, a couple of times now in chunks. So please take a look at that. We had a lot of good input into it from our attorneys and in our policy meetings. Is there anything you want to say about that, Deb?
No, just that it goes out for public comments. So we definitely want our public to take a look at it, parents group, teacher groups, and see if there's anything there that they want to change, you know, or have questions on.
Yep. Okay. So
We have a cheerleading squad.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby has a first reading of policy number 5300, Code of Conduct. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby has a public hearing for policy number 5300, Code of Conduct. Oh, yes. Do I have a motion? Hello?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They just have to unmute Barbara.
No, sorry. I suddenly lost sort of all sound for a minute. I didn't know if anyone could hear me. So, okay, great. Deb, if you want to do your superintendent report, please.
Sure. On the enrollment side, there are no changes. We are keeping track of children that we believe have moved, but reality is during this pandemic, nobody's really enrolling in other school districts. After February, they're entitled to stay anyway at their other school district to keep their education consistent. So when the dust settles, we will know who's truly here and who has moved on. We haven't had any requests for records yet either. So that's another indication that a child has enrolled in someplace else. So those numbers are pretty consistent with last month. So no change there. On the other side, to give an update on the COVID-19, last week, as we all know, the governor, Como, put another stay order in, and it closes our schools until May 15th. We will come back on the 18th, that Monday. The governor has not, is not inclined to do a closure of longer than 2 weeks. Some states have closed through the end of the school year. Some of those states are in regions that school would actually close earlier than New York anyway. They close like in May. But right now he is staying to the 2-week closure. The cabinet and I stay current daily with the county executor, the governor, the president. I have to say Fred Thiel checks in weekly with us, making sure that we have everything that we need and there's not something that he can help us with. We receive information almost daily from our school attorney and other organizations that we belong to. This past Saturday, I was on a call with NYSBA, your organization, the executive director, Jay Warner, and the general counsel to NYSBA, who also on the call was Shannon Tahoe, interim commissioner of education, Dave Fuller, the deputy secretary for education in the governor's office, and Christopher Serrano, the assistant commissioner for special ed. Mr. Fuller suggests that a full reopening of schools, if ordered, would be done regionally. So he echoes that of our county executor. School districts are required to provide distance learning to all their students. Schools will also have to continue meals. We're again very grateful to East Hampton for those meals, and continue childcare. Again, that was Eleanor Whitmore that has helped us out with childcare. So we're grateful to those two organizations at no cost to the school district. As you know, the ELA, science, math testing have been canceled, as well as the Regents exams and the Spanish proficiency exam. We need to follow certain criteria for awarding credit. That charge goes to Mr. Casal, the principal, for the algebra and earth science. Annual professional performance, the APPR decisions are still under study, and Mr. Fuller expects the next governor's executive order to address this issue. He's up to order, the original order of 202.14 extends to pay all employees, salaried and hourly. So we continue to do that. During the webinar, there was greater consideration for extended school year. That comes under Kerry. Normally, a child would receive summer services if their disability would have any regression over the summer. Of course, the concerns are the substantial regression that may occur due to e-learning. So as she does her annual reviews, they will assess that and try to determine what services should take place over the summer. And of course, we don't know whether those services would be remote or in person. The other issue we're still waiting for some information on is the budget votes and budget elections. Again, we're being promised to get a new calendar for the budget adoption. Still have not received that. I walk away from some of these meetings with more questions than answers. And it's very slow coming out of the state education department, I have to say. The county and other municipalities have been very good at giving us information, but the state is very behind. What I do know, and that I'm very proud of, is the faculty, the students, and the parents. And it all starts with the Springs Board of Education, the role that you play, your support. We're extremely grateful for you allowing us to do our jobs. To our teachers, they were asked to pretty much in a day abandon their planned lessons and activities and change to an entire different means of learning. Not just adapting to online education, but also making sure that our children were safe. Providing videos for morning announcements, read alouds, facilitating work with students that in some cases were just brand new to the country. Their compassion for students and their families. I think my mentor, Hank Grishman, said it best today in an analogy that he used on a meeting that I was on. These teachers have done nothing short of building a plane 20,000 feet in the air. It's just incredible how they switch gears. To our parents who continue to be supportive and committed to supporting their children, they're constantly being challenged every day, and we appreciate the extra lengths that they have gone to assist their students. They're juggling working from home, and we know that they're stressed, and we just can't thank them enough for being there for their child. I have to commend the administrators who log on daily to hop into classrooms, not as a checkup on teachers, as so much as the students being able to see our faces and letting them know that we care about them. But it's like walking into a classroom every day at the rate that we're going. I'm personally participating in Mr. Osterwild's life book, and I'm enjoying that. It adds another dimension to my day, but I love it. We've participated, the administrators, in morning meetings with Mr. McCormick's class, writing poems with Mrs. McGrath's class. I shared with you Mr. Knight's germination lesson. You know, we had to click on the button and watch the plants grow. We love seeing the students' efforts and the teachers, TAs doing read alouds. Our parents are struggling. Our mental health staff reaches out to the students, but also to the parents on a regular basis. Our district email, March 2020, continues to be answered not only by the cabinet, but by individuals such as Brian in our IT department, who also speaks Spanish. So when the message is in Spanish and it's related to technology, he answers it in Spanish and goes right to get the device or to help a parent hook up their Wi-Fi. To Christine and Eric and Carrie, who check into the teachers' meetings every week, checking in on teachers, that goes a long way. I can't thank them enough for their support during this time. I could not have done this job without each one of them. To the technology support, they're behind the scenes. You don't see them often, but they rolled out those 150 computers that were donated. Mr. Casal and I had the privilege of handing some of them out, but it was John Charlton, Brian Rivera's, John Gibbons that make up the backbone of this IT department, and we can't thank them enough. Support staff, Donna Lorette, Karen McFarland have devoted hours upon hours making packets and helping to deliver them with Marion's help. Marion continues to be very busy. Our drivers need their regular physicals. Buses continue to require safety inspections. The DOT is open. Our drivers are stepping up, delivering food and materials, and they want to help. Whatever they can do to help, they're willing to help. We're exhausted at the end of the day. We have our own families at home that are struggling, but again, we're here for the students because this is the work that we signed up for. We're coming together to support each other, and we're extremely proud to be part of the Springs community. And whatever we can do for our families, we're here for our families and for our community. I think we're looking at May 1st to do a drive-by to our students. So look for information regarding that drive-by. And please keep checking out the website. I know that there's another posting there that our students did a salute to the first responders, to the nurses. So another great avenue. Some of the projects our teachers are doing with students are related to what's going on today, so that the students can really contribute to something and feel accomplished. So I appreciate those efforts as well. Any questions?
No, thanks, Deb.
Eric will give an update on the online learning, Barbara, a little bit more detail on what that looks like.
Is that a good time to do this now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we can segue right into the discussion about grading. That would
Okay. Not to sound redundant, but again, I do want to thank our teachers for doing an amazing job. Our parents, we know this has not been easy, but they have been very patient with us, patient with getting this off the ground. I feel like over the last couple of weeks, things have gotten a little bit easier from my conversations with teachers and emails with parents. So we hope that things are getting a little bit easier. Our support staff has done an amazing job in doubling up and making sure that kids and families have what they need. Our fellow administrators, as Deb said, and of course you, the Board of Education, for supporting us. We are proud to now have one-to-one devices in every child's hand from grades 2 and up. It was amazing to see them and their families come and pick up the Chromebooks in grades 2 and 3 over the last couple of weeks. In addition to that, we have also been able to provide one-to-one devices to any child in grades K through 8 that did not have the technology at home. As of today, 3 o'clock, we had 3 Chromebooks that were on the fritz, and those are being replaced by this upcoming Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So of all the ones that we've given out, there were 3 as of today that were not working properly. Those will be replaced first thing on Wednesday morning. I do want to give an additional shout out to Ola and Minerva Perez. I've been in touch with her. Her organization stepped up immediately to provide support. The person who donated all the Chromebooks, Mr. Donovan, has really been an angel throughout all this and really making sure that we can provide our children with the proper resources for distance learning. Also, and finally, our IT guys. They have been absolutely, John Gibbons, who's here, but John Sharpton, Brian Rivas, those guys have really worked around the clock because not only making sure that Chromebooks are going out, but they're making sure all the internal systems, the networking, payroll, all those other things that we have still working are working seamlessly. So thank you to all of them. With that being said, if you remember our plan from about 4 weeks ago, our goal was twofold, was really to support students and families with continuity and instruction while we were distance learning, but also provide them with new material. And I have to say our teachers have done an amazing job to do that. We have used a number of different platforms for distance learning. We've used platforms in Google Classroom, Weebly, Class Dojo, Flipgrid, Seesaw, to just name a few. We have close to 300 different classrooms that are up and running right now. And these classrooms range from elementary classrooms to middle school classrooms, to all of the special areas. Even Mr. Jones provides small group instruction based on instrument lessons to all of his students. Our AIS folks, our mental health staff, our related service staff, they're all providing support to their kids. If you recall, in grades K to 5, our goal was to have them work between 2 to 3 hours a day and 3 to 4 hours a day in grades 6 to 8. We've scaled that back a little bit after getting some info from parents, so we're closer to 2 hours for our elementary and closer to 3 hours for our grade 6. Again, this was based on conversations and correspondences that we've had with parents. Our goal here was to be flexible and to not overwhelm them. Anecdotally, we've been able to check on how assignments are going, and I am proud to say 80 to about 85% of our kids are consistently working, which is really great. And we're hoping that we can continue to motivate them and have them continue down that path over the next couple of weeks. So we're trying to be much more creative with some of the projects and some of the assignments that we are giving out to make kids more excited about the learning. Our fear is as this continues, it gets to be a little monotonous. So we want to make sure that we spice it up for our children and for our families. Teachers are using different types of support systems, ranging from videos to voiceovers to read-alouds. Our March 2020 email continues to be monitored on a daily basis. I checked it actually right before this meeting. We had one email, and that was from a newspaper reporter. Grade level meetings, as Deb mentioned, and department meetings take place every single day. We usually post that information on Twitter, which then get posted to our website. As Ms. Delalia mentioned, CSC meetings are taking place. And that's basically it. This week is the last day of quarter number 3, and we are now going to be going into quarter number 4. We're in the process right now of determining what our parent-teacher conferences are going to look like. As you know, our parent-teacher conferences were scheduled for the end of this month, beginning of May. Teachers are checking in with kids on a daily basis. So we were thinking really just having those conferences between the teachers and students and parents that they really need to speak to, as opposed to having them for everybody. We're still in the process of discussing that. And that is my report for distance learning. Overall, like Deb said, they've had to build a plane as they were 30,000 feet up. So, and we thank you for your kind words too, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. And before I forget, behind the scenes also is Julie, Kelly, and Mike. Without them, we would not be getting paid. Without them, our purchase orders would not be processed because we're still ordering things that we need to make this work. Literally, they just jump into action anytime we need them. They're working from home, but they go into the office as needed. Mike, your dedication to this moving target, I know how many hours you put in trying to look at these numbers every which way. Thank you. Our custodians, Dan Newman, all we need to do is text or call somebody and they say, okay, what do you need? I'm there. So we want to thank everybody behind the scenes as well, keeping us all moving. I know for our students and our parents, the ceremonies are a big deal. Well, they're a big deal to us too. And you haven't heard from us because we're waiting to see what happens, but there will be graduations, what they look like and when they take place. But all those moving up exercises and graduations will take place in some way or another with input from our parents and our students. Those are important milestones and we're not going to miss an opportunity to mark them. Correct, Mr. Casal?
You are absolutely right, Miss Winter. Even if it goes into the summer, we will make sure that we have something that celebrates this. Unfortunately, it might not look the same as it always does, so we ask folks to please be patient with us. But we're going to try our best to make it as memorable for the students and their families as much as we possibly can. Did I lose everybody?
Yeah, you sound like it, right? Back to the agenda, Eric.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't. The toolbar with my mute thing on it wouldn't come back up. So, do you want to discuss what you're thinking in terms of grading right now?
Sure. Sure. You want to start, Deb? You want me to start?
Go ahead, Eric. You can start.
Okay. So, looking at since this really began towards the middle end of the third quarter, with about 4 weeks left, our recommendation in talking to our staff is to leave grades pretty much the way they are for third quarter. As you know, if we do that, it also does not impact the way we determine our valedictory and salutatory. And as you know, that status is based on the 4 quarters of 7th grade and the 3 quarters of 8th grade. So it won't really impact that. The conversation that we have to have now really is about moving forward for 4th quarter. What would happen? What would it look like if we were to remain out of school? And we've had an opportunity to speak to our teachers union. We have some ideas from them too. But before we make any recommendations, we wanted to make sure that we have given the Board of Education an opportunity to discuss this as well.
And the board did ask me to reach out to East Hampton. So I have what they're doing. Their 3rd quarter looks very similar to ours in that they're going along with their number grades. But for their 4th quarter, it looks very different for high school than it does for middle school, than it does for elementary school. I think I shared those with you. Would you like me to go over them again, Barbara? What East Hampton is doing?
Yes, I think since we're in a public forum here, that would be a good idea.
Okay, so high school for 4th quarter, the students actually have a choice of whether they want a numeric grade or a pass-fail option. That's at the high school level. For middle school, it's a pass-fail. For John Marshall's, they're on a trimester, and so they're not putting in any report cards right now, but they will for the 3rd term, and it'll be more like a progress report. And we were looking at this as well. So they would say that a child has met their standards, exceeded the standards, or were below working towards the standard. There would be a content grade as well, a content statement as well as an effort statement. That's for elementary school. I think where we're struggling the most is with middle school, because we want students to continue to strive for those grades, especially 7th grade. If you're going to be looking at Val and Sal again next year, how would that look if you suddenly took an entire quarter out of the mix? We'd like to hear from our students. We'd like to hear from our parents on their thoughts. But that's where we're struggling. That's where the conversation was today. We'll have a middle school meeting this week on Wednesday. We'll be asking the middle school teachers to all weigh in. And we're open to hear from the board on what they're seeing. We have stressed over and over again to our students, to our parents, to our teachers, we do not want anybody to stress right now. We want the contact to be there. We want to not lose a child that shuts down, but at the same time, we want them to realize that, it's important to pick up a book, that they can escape in a book, that maybe doing a project with a friend via Google Classroom can be a lot of fun. They've enjoyed writing letters to the first responders, those kind of activity-driven things. I think I shared with you that the 4th graders went on a trip to Disney last Friday. This Friday, they're going to space, and Mr. Casal and I and Carrie and Christina joining them. So, how do you grade something like that? It's participation, it's effort. It's not, the content so much.
Right. Well, I think getting input from teachers as to how kids seem to be doing with the work and keeping up and having, some sort of flow, feedback that way in terms of helping make a decision like that.
The elementary teachers like the progress report.
Yeah.
So I'm going to weigh in here a little bit because, again, I've been really involved in this over the last couple of weeks. It's really tough because the playing field's not the same for students. At school, it's school is school. You're in the school building. There's a school schedule. The resources there for special ed kids and for all kinds of interventions when needed. At home, it's not. Home schedules are different than school schedules. So at home, it's really hard to maintain the same schedule that you have at school, or maintain the same resources, maintain the same kinds of levels of support and commitment that you have at school. So therefore, it's really difficult to, I feel, give grades to kids when they are at different places. Or sometimes not the fault of them at all. Sometimes it is. But again, parents have a lot of responsibility now they never had before. And some parents have risen to that challenge and other parents can't because they're working. They have all kinds of other issues, financial issues, and the other parents don't have. So it is tough. And again, if you're having, looking at grades as a way to give recognition for kids under this situation, it's really hard to do because you have kids that maybe could have maintained that average, but just can't because of the situations they're in. So I think you have to factor all those things into making a decision about how you're going to assess kids during this time. I feel like it's got to be different. It can't be the same. I think you have to really understand every student's situation in sort of an individual way, although I know how difficult that is. Teachers have to be very flexible. I think again, this is just my point of view. I really believe a pass-fail, especially at the middle school, is a way to go. I think it's also important to let kids know how they've participated and what kind of progress they've made. I think it's important to document that. If you're going to use grades to do that, that's okay. But in the end, I think you really can't give them a numerical value as a way to assess their overall participation or a learning during this period of time. I think it has to be a more general pass-fail.
And I think they need feedback, Tim. I think they need ongoing feedback, moral support, encouragement.
Right. But again, given that fact, you're going to have some kids, no matter how much you do, no matter how much you try to do that, it's not going to be equitable for them, no matter how much the school tries to do. And so you also have to take that consideration for some of these kids. Some of them, they're getting grades right now. They may be getting grades that are signifying that they haven't performed at the level they need to. So I would rather look at a standard space report card and give a progress report than necessarily giving grades. And I would look at pass-fail at the middle school, and then at the high school, you don't have any control over that because the high school makes that decision for us. But I think as a small school and moving in this direction, I think we have to look at some of our other schools around us and what they're doing, like Montauk and Amagansett and other elementary and middle schools, and what they're doing in order to make our decision.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tim. I know our feeling is that we don't want to hurt a child, fail a child, because we don't know what those conditions could be at home. We know for a fact that we have a number of students that are doing parental duties right now with younger siblings whose mom and dad are still working. And that was part of the conversation that we had today with some of our teachers, our teacher leaders. So we want to make sure that kids are getting work done, but at the same time, we're not penalizing them for conditions that are outside their control.
Absolutely.
I agree with you 100%.
And that's hard to do. And again, it takes everybody really trying to put themselves in those shoes. And I think our teachers know best than anybody because they're working with them on a daily basis. But they also, in the back of their mind, have this idea that, they should be covering the curriculum. They should be, these kids should be involved and they should be a part of what they're trying to do with them. But again, every teacher is different. You may go on a field trip with one teacher, another teacher is doing worksheets. So it's really inequitable, and that's where you have to bring those things into consideration.
We have said we are not going to harm any student here. There's not going to be a student that, fails. That was very clear. And our teachers are there with us. They really do understand these
Great.
that we're in right now. Nobody's asking or looking to hurt a child at this point in time. They're really not.
Well, and we have the luxury of not having to worry about, college admissions and, GPAs to get their SATs, ACTs. I mean, so, we're in a different boat than obviously high schools and some of the decisions those administrations have to make.
Correct. And Montauk is doing a pass-fail with most of his classes. He does have some teachers, I guess, who are teaching 7th and 8th graders who feel like they need to give grades, especially, I guess, again, for the Regents classes. But Jack's indicated there were a couple there that really felt that they had to give grades. But for the most part, they're doing pass-fail. So we'll have more
Have you had
information.
any parents in touch about this at this point?
No, that's going to be our next, trying to figure out maybe a short little survey that we could put out there to our parents. And of course, we want to hear from our older students, some of the ones that, you know, maybe from student council, maybe Mr. McCormick could reach out to them.
Hey, Eric, did you say regarding the parent-teacher conference, you're thinking of maybe just reaching out to maybe that percentage of students who maybe we're not getting a hold of very well, and maybe trying to reach out to those parents?
Yeah.
Is that kind of like the tentative plan as of right now?
As of right now, yeah, we're going to share more of this with the teachers on Wednesday when we have part of our meetings. But right now, we're feeling that that is going to be the way to go, just because we don't want to inundate both our teachers and our parents with more work, especially since our teachers are pretty much contacting and communicating with parents on a weekly basis. But for the kids who we're concerned about, where that one-to-one conversation needs to take place, I think it's important. I think we lost Dave. Dave, did we lose you?
I'm back.
Okay.
Eric, I got a question for you when you get a chance. Deb, on
Yeah.
the on the pass and fail grades, is there going to be certain criteria you're looking at that have to be met to pass or fail?
Well, that's why we still have teachers keeping grades. You've got to have something to back up that pass or fail. They can't just, you know, unilaterally decide it's a pass or a fail. They have to have something to back it up with.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely. At the end of the process, you know, you don't want parents coming back and say, well, you know, there's no evidence that you helped my child, you know, learn the material. And that's why it's so important for teachers to document, I feel. And that's one way of documenting it along with other ways. But in the end, you really have to come to determination of how you want to, in the end, evaluate or assess the progress or the performance a student has made during these difficult times.
Our special ed teachers and our AIS teachers have been reaching out to the children in the classes that have either not shown up for Google Classroom or are struggling. And even with that extra help, which is one-on-one, some of the teachers report that students are not signing in to get the extra help. So our special ed teachers, our E&L teachers, our AIS teachers are not adding more work to their plate. They want to help them accomplish what they need to accomplish in their classrooms, reteach if they have to, help with homework, help with assignments.
All that information also helps when we do get back into the school to really make decisions about, okay, what do we need now to really help those students?
What are our skills? The skill deficiencies, you're right.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. And also, you know, I mean, the last couple of weeks, things have really progressed very well. I'm very happy where it's going. Big change when we first got into this, you know. And we're going pass and fail. And if we're looking for public input from the parents and from the students, which way they'd like to go, I think we should have some sort of guideline prior to asking that question. There's a state guideline of pass or fail. You know, what is the guideline we want to kind of follow to make it what we're looking to do?
We wish there was one, Pat. We wish there was one from the state ed.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you know, to all the conferences you're talking with other superintendents and other principals, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure this whole thing out together. We shouldn't have to all invent the wheel at the same time, you know. So
I will share that in the state of Massachusetts, their commissioner came out with a three-prong approach. And it was very simple and somewhat similar to us. The first, care for students. We have done that. Make sure that you're supporting them. They're being fed, they're being sheltered, that their emotional needs are being met. Two, create opportunities for projects and enrichment. And the third, set realistic expectations. As Eric said, originally we were looking at a much longer period of time and now realize that we had to back off of that time frame and reduce the hours a little bit. And those hours include the extra activities, which they should be spending time on because it's things that children like to do: art, music, physical activities. And they're all really on their own doing those things and just checking in with the teachers or sharing what they've done with the teachers in a video, scanning their artwork over to the art teacher. So, but this came out of Massachusetts. we haven't gotten anything from the state of New York.
Right. I know, that's, we gotta jump in on it.
I know you talked to your superintendent group and Eric's talked to his principals group. There are districts that have already been talking about this extensively and making decisions. And I think that that's a good venue to listen to as they wrestle with the same issues that we're wrestling with and what they're deciding to do.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, you know, I think most folks feel like you and I spoke about using a pass-fail option, really not hurting children. That seems to be where most of the districts are leaning at this point. And I think for us to be consistent, and it's also good to be consistent with the other feeder districts because our kids will all be going into East Hampton High School. So I think continuity there is important as well. We have some time to make this determination. So we at the next board meeting, we can kind of give you an update on what our teachers are feeling, and then we can foster the conversation a little bit further and then take it from there if that works.
But what I'll do, Eric, I'll send you the latest information from South.
From what you read, yep. Deb shared some of that already from Nick. So,
Okay, good. Like everything else, it's going to be an ongoing wait and see and figure it out as you go along kind of issue, it seems like, right?
we have some time to make that determination. The quarter doesn't start till next Monday, so we have a little bit of time in our hands.
Okay, good.
And we extended the window for grades for the third quarter too. So the teachers have more time to put the grades in.
Yeah, like for example, we really stressed to our staff this week to really make it be a catch-up week, a review week, get kids an opportunity to get things in, and I'll encourage them to complete some of the assignments for those that have not. So that's really, you know, again, we've scaled back our approach a little bit too, based on the input that we receive from teachers and from parents.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. It's technically time for public commentary number 2. Julie, has anyone been in touch about anything?
No, I have emails up and there's nothing public commentary at the moment.
Okay, then at this point, do I have a motion to adjourn the regular Board of Ed meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then at this time, I would like to open the budget meeting, budget workshop. Number, I forget what number we are.
4.
Budget number 4. Okay, thank you. Mike, if you want to go ahead and go over that presentation. You're muted. Mike.
You make a motion?
Mike, turn your mic on.
Mike went to sleep.
There we go.
There you go. Okay.
All right, I'm going to try to do the presentation and set it up from here.
Did you upload it?
Well, I should be able to do it right from here.
Okay.
What's going on here? There we go.
Here you go, Mike. Look at you.
Oh, man, let's see if it works. You're presenting. All right, can you see the screen right now or no?
Yes.
All right, here it is. Let's see. Slideshow from beginning. All right, good. All right, with the COVID-19 crisis since budget workshop number 2, we've entered into some unprecedented times. However, we still want to deliver instruction, conduct our daily business, and manage our resources. These are all uncharted territories, and in this time, and there have been so many changes, which has restructured everything that we do. We've established a set of assumptions in an effort to roll budgets forward and project out to 2024-25. The first thing I've got here is our effect of tax cuts. So if we look at the 2021, the last time we talked, we were looking at a tax cap of 3.98%, and we were coming in at 2.23%. If you recall, a tax cap would have given us a tax levy of $27,646,576. And for every 1% that I reduce the tax from the tax cap, equates to a cut of $276,466. What I've done here is you'll see the top dark blue line is the tax cap. If we continue along the path of keeping at the tax cap every single year out to 24, 25, we would ultimately end up with a tax levy in year 24, 25 of $29,675,701. The darker red one in the middle, that's if we make a cut at to bring it down to 2.23% increase in 2021, and then carry out to the max allowable tax caps for each of the subsequent years. We will be roughly about $280,000 below. Actually, it's a little bit more. It's a little bit more than. It's more like about $550,000 lower than if we stayed at the maximum tax cap going out. So you can see by these graphs, for every change you do in your tax cap to bring your tax levy below the cap, the impact out 5 years, it's gonna widen. Just to give you some perspective as to the effect of a current cut on future ability to levy taxes. The major items that we're concerned about in the budget are our wages and salaries, our employee benefits, the non-resident tuition, and the debt service. Those are probably the big 4 items in the budget. Wages and salaries, what I've done is I've looked at all the contracts, the teachers, the TAs, and then the non-contractual type people, our support staff, our clerical, our administrators that have individual contracts and the like. So for 1920, you'll see we're at $11,156,000 in total payroll cost. By moving teachers, all these people up a step without any lane changes, and I've taken out any of the positions that we're abolishing, we could have a payroll cost next year of $11,349,468, which is a 1.73% increase. And keeping to that formula where we're just increasing everybody by their step or given percentages in their contracts, it goes out 2.17% in 21-22, 2.82% in 22-23, 2.46% in 23-24, and 2.15% in 24-25. What this really shows us is that if we keep to where we are today, it's pretty level increases on the wages and the salaries with no other changes in those formulas or in those contracts. Employee benefits, a lot of it's going to be dependent upon how our salary grows. And, FICA and Medi-FICA, the Social Security, that definitely, it's, our employer cost on these benefits is 7.65% of those salaries. We have a few salaries that will be over the FICA limits, but it's not very much, and it's not significant to change any of these numbers. The same thing with state retirement. Everything is based on the salaries we report to both ERS and TRS, and it's applied by percentage for those. Health and student insurance, I've lumped those two together because we always look at those kind of in the same category. And again, I'm anticipating roughly a 2.5% increase in premium, but I heard something today that may change the whole thing with the insurance. The insurance may start seeing, because of the COVID-19 illnesses, the expenses that the insurance companies are going to have to pay out to cover those medical bills could cause claims to be higher, which results in future premiums escalating. Or what the insurance companies could do, like NYSHIP did last year, was start increasing things like the co-pays and deductibles and things like that, and basically passing those costs down to the individual participants within the plans to try to keep the premiums at a more moderate level. but that's all yet to be seen. Workers' comp, I'm kind of leaving it flat. It's just we're in a self-insured consortium, and unless we have any more gigantic workers' comp claims, these numbers should hold. They should hold fine. But again, we could be hit with a big workers' comp claim for COVID-19 if somebody can link that they picked up the disease while doing something for spring school. We've got the custodians in the building. We've had people in the building handing out things, delivering things, and they may contract the disease as part of their work duties. And that in itself could lend to a claim of workers' comp insurance if that can be linked together. Life insurance, we don't have much in the way of that. There's a few individuals that have a life insurance coverage in their contracts. So I'm anticipating that rate is not going to really materially change. Unemployment insurance, same thing there. But although I'm not anticipating big changes or big increases to us directly, because under the COVID-19 and under the CARES Act, what the federal government is doing is they're funding close to 75% of the unemployment claims that every employer is going to incur, including school districts who basically with unemployment, we are self-insured on this. So we only pay the claims as we get billed from the state. And then the last two items, the flexible benefits plan is the administration fee, and the same thing with any employee allowances like for travel, for cell phones, that kind of stuff fall in those lines. And it's, they're nominal. So I have to include it as part of the overall employee benefits. Non-resident tuitions, we just approved the contract, and the rates for East Hampton High School, in these calculations, I'm using exactly what was in the schedule on the contracts. The only variable we now have is going to be in the number of students that fall into the three categories below: regular ed, hybrid students, and the special ed students. We're looking at our past history, our student headcounts and enrollments, and we're trying to project out to 24, 25. Basically, what I've kind of done is taken whatever we had at the last enrollment numbers from March and used that and pretty much rolled it all forward to come up with the numbers that you see here. I've included in here the bond calculation schedule. It's kind of tough to see, but this is what I had gotten from Unistat, how they calculated everything, which also it shows the year by year what the effect on homes are going to be at three different assessed value levels. Down at the bottom in the highlighted yellow, those assessed values calculate to what the estimated fair market value is according to the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services. It's basically a formula that takes the assessed value divided by the equalization rate to get that estimated fair market value. And those estimated fair market values will appear right on your tax bills, so you can see exactly what your estimated fair market value for your home is, and compare that to what I've got laid out in here. And again, this is based on, like I said, a house with a $3,420 assessed value up to a $5,700 assessed value.
But these are also, seems to be slightly different than what we were looking at earlier, and this would be actually option one, I'm assuming. This is not the band.
This was the raw bond calculation that Mike had given me, Munistat had given me, and I've used it in different ways. Like I changed the dates, the fiscal year ends, in order to fit our option 1, 2, and 3 calculations. But it still works out the same as far as the 3.5%. And again, when I spoke with him about that, he decided he wanted to use something a little bit higher, just so that there was some room downward. He always feels he'd rather estimate on the high side than try to come in precisely, knowing that when we finally do go out to bond, that it's a negotiated amount, it's a bid amount, and we'll know at the time the bids come in what those rates are going to be. Anybody have anything else on that? All right, here's option one. We had this, I showed this earlier, how it would lay out the new project debt starting in 2021, which is interest only for the first part of the year. From August until the end of the year. 21, 22 is another. We'll basically have the first 18 months that the debt is out with interest only. And then in 22, 23, you'll have principal and interest. 23, 24, principal and interest. 24, 25, principal and interest. Option number two is to defer the project by one year. So we're trying to move it out, and basically we're going to have to go to bond probably in January in order for this schedule to work, where we're going to be paying interest for the 21-22 year. We're going to pay interest the first half of 22-23, then half a year's interest and principal in 22-23, which puts us on the principal and interest for a year for each of the next years going out. And you see they're fairly similar, 1.183 million, 1,183,000 each of those years.
And Mike, and that's not deferring the capital project for a year. That's actually just deferring the capital project debt for a year. The project is still on track.
Right, exactly. That's just deferring the debt out. Actually, it's going to bond 6 months later and deferring the payments out so that it's further out as well. And you'll see we'll save 296,000 versus option one in 2021, but then we're going to pick it up in 21-22. So it ends up balancing out. So we're not going to really save anything by doing it this way in terms of the cost being put onto the taxpayers. Then option three, where again we talked about this earlier, we ban the project for 1 year, go out to bond with an 18-month deferral of the first payment, and you can see it pushes out the ban interest will be picked up in the 21-22 year, then interest only on the bond for the 22-23 year, and then the 18th month we'll be picking up principal and interest in full for 23-24 and 24-25. And down below you can see how the savings between option three's debt service cost to the taxpayer versus the option one will yield a $964,000 savings over those 5 years, which again, it's a savings in terms of what we're passing along to the taxpayers in these 5 years, and should give us room to adjust for anything that happens in the marketplace with the economy. And by 24-25, a lot of the problems that we're seeing today should be behind us. Appropriations projections. So again, using all of the numbers I presented for salaries and wages, benefits, tuitions, I've added all of these. I've tried to grow them by roughly 1.5%. So 2021, our budget to budget should increase by 0.5%. Then it goes to 3.22%, 3.83%, 3.79%, and then finally 1.18%. These are the revenue projections, and you'll see the tax levy is going to go up 2.12, 2.55, 3.67, 3.06, 1.94 in these 5 years using option three as the base. And again, you'll see at the bottom there, I think it says budget. I got some, yeah. It shows the actual budget increases on the bottom as well.
Mike, the slide with the revenue side, you took out 20% on the state aid.
I did.
And what is your
aid?
East End meeting saying today? I saw reports of up to 25%, up to 50%.
They're all over the place, and part of it too is right now the federal government, the new CARES Act or stimulus plan that they've put in place does not have anything coming to the states for school districts. So
I have a letter for the board that I will share out to Senator Schumer and another one to Laval, asking for that federal aid to come to school districts. So I'll share that letter. You tell me your thoughts, and we'll get it out. And I think we should post it on the website and have as many community members, parents, teachers send similar letters or make phone calls.
Yeah, the other thing I haven't factored in on a lot of this stuff is any of the appropriations that we may be able to carry over. Like, for instance, this year, I'm still, I'm expecting that we're going to have money left over that we can appropriate for next year. I don't know what it's going to be, but it could be sizable. And we'll have some strategies involved there, whether we put it into the TRS reserve, the ERS reserve to help, because usually state aid pays for those two items, especially TRS. So if the state is going to cut their aid and I put money into TRS reserve now at the end of this fiscal year, that money will be available that we can then actually use to pay the state aid next year and trying to keep our limit at 4%. Although I am hearing some rumors that the state may not really look at that 4% undesignated fund balance and just turn a blind eye to it, knowing what's going on with school districts, and we just don't have a lot of resources where to put the money in order to use it to help ease the burden on some of these future expenditures, like in tuitions and TRS and ERS areas.
Mike, you're talking about savings from from this third quarter and fourth quarter, maybe where we're saving money.
Correct.
Because school's closed.
Correct. If we have a sizable surplus at the end of this fiscal year, I have to find a place to use it. And I want to be able to do it so that we can systematically put money each of the subsequent years in order to keep your tax levies at a reasonable level.
Mike, I got a question for you on the wages and salaries. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And Mike, you mentioned step increases, but you know about lane shifting. Have you done a format for the next 5 years on the lane changes with salaries?
We always have a chunk of money kind of set aside to be able to cover lane changes, but I've only done step increases, and I've left whatever we leave in for those kind of lane changes. I've left that in place. Like this year, in the past, we haven't had so many lane changes as we did last fall. It hit us for almost $77,000 was what the cost of the lane changes were. But by the same token, I'm anticipating the salaries of all of these teachers. We're going to be covering some of it through our grants. And if we continue to get the grants that we've gotten, that's where we usually cover the lane changes, is with the grant money.
Okay. All right. Okay. I just want to make sure. I know it's something new. We just started, lane changes versus step increases. That's why I was talking about that.
Yeah. You can never budget really for lane change because you just don't know. It's up to the individual teacher who takes the classwork, the coursework, and gets the credits to move over.
Does it also work by amount of years, Mike?
What?
Isn't that a yearly thing too? How many years of service?
The number of years
to make lane changes.
It's not dependent on the number of years. It's they make a lane change, they're staying at the same step and they're just moving over a lane. Each lane change in the teacher salary tables, each lane change is 5% increase.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I was wondering. So it's not much.
What's that?
I don't have the graph in front of me. That's what I'm
we do have a young staff, Pat, so you are going to see that, continue to climb.
Right.
And you got to figure a young.
Right. The outcome that is in 5 years.
Yeah, a step one person moving to step two, that's probably going to be close to a 4% increase just on the step. And then if they get a lane change in the midst, you're talking about a 9% increase for that one teacher. But that's not for everyone.
But that's not the majority.
We do have 33 new staff members, correct, untenured? And if they stay for the next 5 years, what will that change on this, Mike?
Yeah, it will change as the teachers get more senior, Pat. They have a cap
Right, yeah,
as to number of credits they can
I
get.
just want to put that in consideration when he did this time for the next 5 years.
Yeah, but Pat, you also have to understand that a lot of our senior staff will be retiring during this time too. So that also gives you some savings.